Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Syafiah Husna, and today I would like to explain about Syariah courts, native court, and court of ruler. So, for Syariah court, the Syariah court system is the one of the two separate court systems which exist in the general Malaysia legal system, which there is a parallel system of state Sharia courts which have limited jurisdiction over matter of state Islamic law. So, the system is organized into three distinct levels. At first, the Sharia lower court. So, Sharia lower court is the first point of entry for most applications and claims at the district level. The second one is Sharia high court. Sharia high court handles more complex cases and exercises supervisory authority over the lower courts. And the last one is Sharia appeal court, appeal court, which is the highest level that hears appeals from the High Court. So, throughout 2025, the Malaysian government has continued efforts to empower the Sharia judiciary. This includes ongoing discussions regarding the Sharia courts about criminal jurisdiction, amendment bill, and the standardization of Sharia laws across different states to ensure legal consistency. So, um, for for example of Sharia court case is Nik Alin Zorina, binti Abdul Rashid, and another versus Kerajaan Negeri Kelantan. The Nik Alin case involved lawyer Nik Alin Zorina and her daughter challenging 18 provision of Kelantan's 2019 Sharia Criminal Code, accusing the state legislature overstepped its federal constitution's power. In a landmark 8-1 decision, Malaysia Federal Constitution, Malaysia Federal Court declared system provisions invalid as they overlap with federal law sexual harassment, intoxicants, affirming the federal constitution's supremacy by upheld two sections related to child prostitution and cross-dressing as valid state matters. The ruling clarified state versus federal legislative power, affirming Islam's position while preventing a patchwork of differing state criminal laws, setting precedent for future challenges. The next is the native courts. The native courts is a specialized judicial system which prominent in places like Malaysia, especially in Sabah and Sarawak, and it handles dispute under indigenous customary laws, which focusing on traditional matters like land, inheritance, marriage, and community harmony. The native courts aims to preserve cultural practices and provide culturally relevant justice for indigenous people. For example, the case of Haji Laugan Tarki bin Muhammad Noor versus Mahkamah Anak Negeri Penampang, which the appellant Haji Laugan Tarki was convicted by Penampang Native Court of slander and sentenced to 1 month imprisonment. He sought leave from the High Court for an order of certiorari to quash this decision. But the High Court initially refused the application, arguing that the native court system had its own extensive appeal process and its decisions were not amenable to judicial review. So the Supreme Court allowed the Supreme Court allowed the appeal, setting aside the High Court's refusal. And the next one is Court of Ruler. Court of Ruler is a historical royal court, which for attendance, administration, and ceremony. And it established to handle legal case like civil or criminal that involving the king or Yang di-Pertuan Agong or state rulers in their capacity and ending their previous immunity. For example, the case of Faridah Begum binti Abdullah versus Sultan Haji Ahmad Shah. Faridah Begum binti Abdullah versus Sultan Haji Ahmad Shah was a landmark Malaysian case where a Singaporean citizen sued the Sultan of Pahang for libel in the newly formed special court. The court ruled 4/1 that due to sovereign immunity and reciprocity, Singapore's presidents couldn't be sued by a Malaysian. The Sultan couldn't be sued personally by a non-Malaysian, establishing that Malay rulers were generally immune from lawsuits from those outside Malaysia. So, the case established that only Malaysian citizens have the legal standing to bring actions against rulers in the special court. And it clarified the boundaries of the 1993 amendments, confirming that the special court is a unique forum with restricted access. So, under Article 182, 6, decisions of the special court are final and cannot be challenged in any other court.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Wan Nur Alia Natasha binti Wan Zawawi and my metric number 1254125. For this slide, I will explain the jurisdiction of the Syariah court compared to the civil court. Firstly, the Syariah court applies only to Muslims. This means that only Muslims are subject to the jurisdiction of the Syariah court and non-Muslims cannot be tried in this court. Secondly, the Syariah court covers Islamic family law and religious offences. This includes matters such as marriage, divorce, maintenance, inheritance, and offences related to Islamic teachings such as khalwat or failure to fast during Ramadan. Next, the jurisdiction of the Syariah court comes from state laws. Under the Federal Constitution, matters relating to Islamic law fall under the state list. So, each state has the authority to enact laws governing the Syariah court. However, the Syariah court has a limited jurisdiction. Its powers are restricted in terms of the types of cases it can hear and the punishment it can impose. Lastly, civil court are barred by Article 121 Clause 1A from interfering in matters that fall within the Syariah court's jurisdiction. This provision ensures a clear separation between the Syariah court and the civil court. Moving on to the next slide, I will discuss the native court and how it differs from the civil court. Firstly, the native court applies to indigenous communities in Sabah and Sarawak. These courts are specifically established to handle disputes involving native people in these states. Secondly, decisions of the native court are based on native customs and traditions. This means that the court takes into account traditional practices and cultural norms of the indigenous communities. The native court is also governed by customary law, which is different from the written statutes applied in the civil court system. In addition, its jurisdiction is limited to native communities only. Non-indigenous persons are generally not subject to the native court's authority. In contrast, civil courts apply uniform laws that are applicable to all citizens regardless of ethnicity or background, ensuring consistency across the country. For the last slide, I will explain the jurisdiction of the court for rulers in comparison to the civil court. Firstly, the court for rulers has exclusive jurisdiction over rulers. This means that cases involving the Yang di-Pertuan Agong or the rulers of the states are heard only by this court. Secondly, the court hears both civil and criminal cases involving rulers, ensuring that they can be held legally accountable. The Court for Rulers is established under Article 1A2 of the Federal Constitution, which provides the legal basis for its existence and powers. As a result, civil courts have no jurisdiction to hear cases involving rulers, as these matters fall solely within the authority of the Court for Rulers. Finally, the existence of this court upholds the rule of law as it ensures that no individual, including rulers, is above the law. So I think that's all from me. Thank you.
First, historical legal system of multiple judicial system. Malaysia's legal system developed through different historical phases, including the pre-colonial era and British rule. As a result, different court systems evolved side by side. Maintaining separate courts allows the system to continue operating according to their original purpose and structure. The second reason is constitution expiration of civil and Sharia courts jurisdiction. Civil court deal with general legal matters, while Sharia court handle matters relating specifically to Muslims, especially in personal and family law. The federal constitution clearly separates their jurisdiction so that each court can function independently without interference, ensuring legality and fairness. The third reason is protection of indigenous community and their customary law. In Sabah and Sarawak, native courts are maintained to deal with the issue based on indigenous custom and tradition. This matter cannot be fully addressed by civil or Sharia courts. Keeping native court helps protect indigenous rights and preserve their culture practice. Other than that, respect for the constitutional role and special position of the rulers. Malaysia maintains special courts to handle cases involving the Yang di-Pertuan Agong of the Malay rulers. This ensures that such cases are dealt with separately from ordinary civil courts, respecting the constitutional position of the monarchy and helping to maintain political stability. The last reason is to avoid conflicts and overlap between different courts. By maintaining separate courts with clearly defined jurisdiction, Malaysia can reduce the risk of overlapping authority and conflicting decisions. This separation helps ensure that each court focuses only matters within the expertise, contributing to a more orderly and effective legal system.